So I turn on my camera and who do I see but Dewey Freeman looking back at me. I'm starting with
That's a
Dr.
poem.
Seuss. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That's our show. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the
Good
Elder
morning.
Council. Good morning, sir. You know, it's winter. I never know when people are going to listen to the show, so I kind of keep it, temperature agnostic because I don't know if it's cold. Unless if someone in Australia is listening right now, they're going, "Hey, mate, it's the middle of summer."
That's right.
But it is Saturday, that's for sure. It is early in the morning, and this is my favorite part of the week.
Mine too, and so good to see you. And just temperature-wise, it was 17 this morning, so it was a little chilly going up to feed.
I wake up, I come in, and I turn on the heater here in the studio, and so it's nice and toasty when I come into it because I am a wimp when it comes to weather, and you are the mountain man, so we're living on other sides of that comfort scale for sure.
How are you this morning?
I am really good, and I've been thinking about, we're in the holiday season, and you don't need holidays to think about this topic, but I think it's natural, and I think because something I read this morning was we're going into the third year of COVID. I mean, just think about that for just a second. We're going into the third year of COVID and how that's radically altered all of our lives. So I thought this morning we would get off of that. And I want to talk about community. And I want to talk about like what that means. And the root of those words going to communal, and I think of communal feast, I think of food and how food brings us together. Of course, I'm a chef my whole life, but I think about food and community, and I think about community and how it's so hard to build community, has been for the last few years. But even before that, I think people had a hard time being social anymore because we're looking at screens, and it's like, oh, I got to look up from my screen to look at the real world.
Somebody.
So when I lay the table, when I set the table with that for our conversation, where does your brain take you, sir?
My first, I think in images a lot. My image was, I don't know, 4,000 to maybe 6,000 years ago, a very primal, earth-based tribe or group was sitting around in a cave or outside and sharing a meal together. And that's the gathering of food and sharing of food is one of the primary things that brings us together as people.
That's in our DNA to do that.
Very deeply.
And I think we've gotten beyond the just, well, I think at that time, I don't know, I wasn't there. Was it just the nourishment part, or was there the getting together, the social part of it? Don't know. I'm interested in the social part of community and how food has this natural way of bringing us together, yet it feels in the last 50 years we've gotten away from gathering around the fire and having a meal to fast food, grab and go. You eat something quick and then you're out, and you don't use that time to have a natural break in the day to commune with the other people who are eating and slowly eat your food and talk and connect with other people. Our lives feel too busy.
Well, too busy and too fast. And there's a lot of evidence that well, one, and you're right about the last 50 years. And in fact, I have an example that Kimberly and I ran into the other evening. But two is that making of meals and feasts, which is where the word festivity comes from, was and still is the core of community. And in fact, when in all of the attachment stuff that we've spoken about, there's three things that create attachment. One is food.
Mm.
One is touch, which is contact, and the other is movement, which can be seen as movement of energy. So an emotional process of that we could very easily call community. Food is what brings us together, whether it be infant and parent, or whether it be you and I, and or a group of people. And part of what you were saying, and I mean, this was mind blowing, Kimberly. It was actually last night. We went to one of our favorite restaurants at the end of the day. We've had a really intense week. We've worked together really well. And we went out and had a really good meal. And on our way home, leaving, we drove past a Chick-fil-A. There were 2 lanes in the fast food, in the pickup line, the outdoor pickup line, the drive-through. And there were probably 10 to 12 cars in each of those lanes backed up, which actually speaks to your point, which interestingly enough, there were more people in the Chick-fil-A line than there were in the restaurant where we just left, which is a quiet, sit down, communal sort of a restaurant in this area. So I'd be interested in your thoughts of what happens when we don't have that community. And you being a chef, which I think is unbelievably cool. What is your perspective of both preparing food for another, which I think is part of a community, like that preparation and the love that goes into that, but also sitting and being with people with the food that you've prepared? What is that like?
I think there's 3 answers to that. So the thinking about the people who are going to eat the food and what that means to them, because I place an inordinate amount of meaning on food. Just me. I think about this is what I think about is I call it the first bite. All I care about is the first bite. I've done all of this work. I may have pre-ordered stuff a week ago, a month ago, so I had the right things in place, my mise en place, right? Everything ready to go. And then I make everything, and then it gets to them, and then they sit down, and all the stuff they had to do to get themselves there, and all the stuff I had to do to get the food there, and the universe collides, and and boom, and what matters? The first bite. It's all I care about, because it's at first the anticipation. Gosh, we're finally here. I get to see people I haven't seen, or it's just me and I'm hungry. Whatever it is, I want people to stop enough, not like, and then what do you say? They're just shoveling. I don't want that. I want first bite. So that's what I'm thinking about, whether they are or not. And I will say, how was your first bite? Kind of what I say. How was the first bite? Because after that, it's all different now. Because my anticipation is gone. Do I like it? Is it salty? Is it sweet? Is it delicious as I hoped it would be? Is it
Mhm.
everything I wanted? And frequently, more than 80% of the time, for me, it wasn't the taste I was expecting.
Oh, really?
Because I place so much emphasis, I front load that expectation so high on what this is going to be, because the visualization, if I'm making a steak for myself or I'm doing whatever that is, and then I've done all the stuff, and now my first bite. So I've just created a whole thing just for myself, and I thought about it. Gosh, what would I like to eat? And I pick out the right whatever it is. Oh yes, I want that one, and everything is just boom, 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 and then it's like, oh, it's okay. I mean, that I do that. It's so that's that. Now, the people who are coming to it have a different expectation entirely. But I think what is even better around the whole thing is if I'm sharing it with someone. So that just eating, I've spent many, as you have, many meals eating by myself. As the chef, you eat by yourself, almost always. Eat by yourself, unless
Really?
yeah, almost always, unless you have a brigade. But as it turns out, in most of my engagements, I was the Lone Ranger chef, and so I did everything myself. Even if I had 50 people, it was just me. And you get a meal before everyone else eats, and you eat by yourself. And now we have things to distract us, even like, because I'm reading the paper, or I'm looking at whatever. I'm not just quietly sitting enjoying the meal. Mea culpa, don't do that. So for me, the thinking about creating an environment where people can enjoy one another over the meal is something I'm always thinking about. Like, how are we doing that? How is what I'm doing? And as you know, I cook for sick people. And so a lot of people I cook for are sick. So I want their experience to be nurturing, and because I know that they're sharing the meal with people who've come to be with them as they're sick, to be able to comfort them. So I want the food to be the binding agent in that experience.
Do you think that food is a binding agent only when someone's sick, or do you think it's a binding agent in general?
Binding agent in general, and has greater import when you're not feeling well, because you don't feel well. But here's again, back to the first bite. I think just because you're sick doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to enjoy this. I had this one woman I cooked for years ago, had terminal cancer, had about 8 weeks left, and I was asked to cook for those last 8 weeks and cook for the family, and just take the preparation of meals kind of off the table as a thing to worry about. And I remember, 12, 15 weeks into this, she was still alive. And I dropped off some food, and her husband walked me to the door and he said, your soup is keeping her alive. It was like, phew. So, and knowing that, I think, the food keeps us alive. So people who are paying attention to the food we're cooking, like, it's a thing, right? And I think we've gotten away from that. Even if we're just throwing together a meal for the kids, think about it for a minute. Just like it if you want, it has the opportunity to mean so much more than it does right now. And it doesn't take a lot of time to add that meaning to it.
So part of what it sounds like you're talking about is food actually creates attachment.
To your point.
Food nurtures life. One of the things there are two things rolling around. One is, and I'll just share this, obviously no names. One of my clients dramatically changed how he was eating, to the point of, to where he's in his late 30s, to the point to where he said that I feel nurtured for the first time in my life. He had also had major medical stuff around movement and flexibility and gout in his feet and all kinds of stuff. And after literally just 2 weeks, he came up and said, I am walking without pain for the first time in 30 years. I can bend over and tie my shoes. And literally nurturing himself. A big part of that nurturing was also that his wife was very supportive in helping him with that.
That's not to be dismissed as an extremely important part of this.
Exactly. And certainly in my life with my partner, Kimberly, her level of nurturing of me in all ways, and particularly though food, is something I've never had in my life. Even something simple like this morning coming down, up feeding, it was cold, and taking care of the horses and walking into the house. And I mean, there was a bowl of granola and nuts and cereal and fruit. And I mean, just walking in to that and that level of nurturing. And what I'm wondering about, so I'm going to combine that with the first bite part, particularly in a communal setting, is the metaphor of the first bite of food with the metaphorically with the first bite of community. Because one of the things that you said that was incredibly interesting to me, and I mean, I hold you in extremely high esteem around, well, in general, but also around your ability to cook, create, nurture. And it's like the fact that your first bite is like, oh, that's different than what I expected. And what my guess is sometimes it's maybe not quite as good as what you expected, but my guess is other times it's way better than you expected.
Yeah.
It's like, oh. And what I wonder about is are we able as beings to, whether it's when we meet our partners in the morning, you know, because most people don't wake up at exactly the same time, you know, or whether we're having friends over for lunch or a dinner, or it's like, what's the first bite like? And how's that the same or different than what you expected, whether it be of the food or of the actual relational process? And then
I'm gonna
keep going.
Keep going.
Well, and then the other piece that I'm curious about is, how does our first bite of food affect our first bite of relational process?
I don't know the answer. We'll explore that. I'm thinking that over the last, you know, it's challenging with COVID, getting out and doing the things normally we did, but I'm going out of my way to have at least one coffee a week, a no agenda meeting. That's what I call it, like a no agenda. I don't have to make any decisions. I don't have to brainstorm. I don't have to solve any problems. It's just like, hey, how you doing? And the first bite of that is the first sight of the person I'm going to share that coffee with. So parking the car, getting out, walking and seeing them see me, and having the recognition that we're both glad to see one another. That's the first bite of that relationship. It's not, I've had a few of these new people. Someone's introduced me to someone like they did you and I. And so I don't know them. So I don't have any of that. For the first bite is still kind of, yeah, I'm not sure. Do I like this? Do I like this or not? But if it's with someone I haven't seen in a long time, the first look is typically followed with a hug for me. Like, not a casual hug. It's usually a, man, that was a good hug. And I says, I haven't seen you in a long time. I didn't want to waste that minute, right? Oh, I didn't want to waste that moment. So for me, that's the first bite, is that part, that having looked forward to something. For me, it's the thing isn't what is as important as how I feel about the thing. And how I feel about the thing is typically accelerated by the anticipation of the thing, whether it's a first bite or a friend or going on an adventure or whatever. My whole life, and this came from my mom, was to appreciate anticipation. Because the first bite's over and
first bite is like
gone. But the whole period before that, it might be 6 weeks. You had to call and get a reservation at a place, and that it takes 6 weeks to get there. So it's that whole, you have 6 weeks to enjoy the anticipation, or I know
the anticipation of the first bite.
I can't wait to see the grandkids, or I can't wait to see Kimberly at night. I know, because I know we're going to sit down and we have a ritual of sitting down and sharing our meal and talking. And I look forward to that. Yet the amount of time we're actually sitting there is about 18 minutes. It's not that long, right? It's not very long.
Right.
It's like Chinese food. It takes, how many hours it takes to make Chinese food?
A lot.
Inordinate. Yet you eat it, gone. So it's that. So for me, back to cooking becomes the excuse, if you will, the thing, that the attractive nature of something that brings people together, so we can do the thing I really want to do, is connect with other humans, right? Because we're social beings.
So absolutely. And one of the pieces that you're talking about, both in the first bite and the hug, or an anticipation of meeting somebody new. I mean, actually, I think back of when you and I got introduced, and then I don't remember from when we were introduced until we had our first connection. I think it was a few days. I don't remember exactly. But the anticipation of that, I do remember. And actually, in all honesty, nervousness on my part.
We all have a little anxiety around that, right?
Yeah.
There's always anxiety around that. It is fear of the unknown. Now, it's not a bad fear, but it is fear of the unknown. It's a thing I do not know. And because I do not know it, I fear it. And as soon as I know something, I'm not afraid. That's someone taught me that when I was 20 years old. The only reason you're afraid is because you don't know what's going to happen. It's the only reason you're afraid. As soon as you know what's going to happen, your fear goes away. Doesn't, and the thing that's going to happen could be a bad thing, but you're not afraid of it.
So part of what's rattling around inside me is, and what you just spoke to, is the first bite, whether it's in the first in community or the first bite in food, actually changes their nervous system.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
So part of what you're talking about, or we're talking about around community, is the process of changing our nervous system and the process of allowing our nervous system to be how we're designed to be. Because when
Tell me more about that.
Well, two pieces, and I'm going to go with the community and health here for a moment. Is in our anxiousness, our nervous system is in one state. When we actually make contact, our nervous system changes. And what we're usually hoping for is a settling of our nervous system, which allows us to make better, deeper contact with another. And it's the same thing with food. I cannot tell you how many times I will walk into somewhere and it's just this thing inside me where it's like, I'm not upset, I'm not nervous, I'm not angry. It's just like, there's something, it's maybe described as a little bit of tightness. And then it's like when I get the first bite, my whole nervous system changes. My blood sugar level changes, my breath changes, what's happening inside me changes. And it's like, it's like, oh, hi, Mark. And the nurturing of food and the nurturing of contact both together is something that going way back to where we started, like that hurry up and eat, we eat on the run and we're not having food with people, et cetera, is, I believe pretty strongly, a way to avoid contact. And I don't know if it's avoiding or if it's just we're so habitual that, we run through. Even if we're eating healthy, we get something really quick and have 7 minutes to eat, and then we're on our way. And that piece of having community and eating with another being it gets lost.
Yeah, 100% gets lost. And, we I had to keep track of things like this, but we eat on average, there are 21 scheduled times to eat during the week. Simple: breakfast, lunch, and dinner times 7, right? So there's 21 opportunities to share and break bread, right? My, the title of my cooking website, chefmarksylvester.com, is called Till We Eat Again.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And
until we meet again. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've said that out of my whole life. It's till we eat again. Right. Because it's and there's the metaphor till we break bread. We want to break bread with someone, because when we do that, we are allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, because I have to have both my hands on the food to break the bread. I don't have a hand on a weapon, or I don't have a hand guarding myself. I'm, and I open my, all of those things around vulnerability when we eat, right? So we want to eat in a safe, trusted situation. Why with our cat, and this is an animal thing, right? Our cats, if they don't feel safe when they're eating, they don't eat, right? Because they're very vulnerable while they're eating. Animals are very vulnerable. And so tons of examples of that. So let's say we don't have to worry about getting attacked while we're eating. So the opportunity 21 times is to, even if it's that only that 7 minutes, because you both got to get back on the line, or you got to get on with your day, but consciously and intentionally taking that time just to share. It is nearly impossible. I'm sure if someone's listening to this, they're going, oh, fuck, Mark, how do I do that? Okay, well, just do it once a week or twice a week. You have 21 opportunities. Do it 3 times a week. Go crazy. When I was growing up, when my kids were growing up, the rule in the house was during high school, dinner at 6, period. Everybody's at dinner, period. And that was, kids are 47, 48. So, 25 years ago, 25 years ago, they were the only kid in each of their respective classes who had mandatory dinner together with the family. 25 years ago. So that's only gotten very, very much worse than that, right? Very worse than that. In fact, now it's not even sitting down to eat, it's standing up to eat. So I don't even have enough time to sit down. I'm going to stand up and eat, and I'll go.
While they're on their phones.
Well,
and if you think about it, 7 dinners a week, it's probably, like you said, it's 18 minutes. That's what you said earlier. We'll round it up to 20. So 7 times 20, 140 minutes, literally barely over 2 hours a week spent together.
Out of 168 that you have,
Right.
your total addressable hours.
Yep.
Total available hours. So I'm just curious for the person who's listening right now, just to kind of think back on this last week's meals and what was that like, and to think forward to next week's meals. And again, all the COVID challenges, some cities are locking down again, and you don't feel safe going out to eat. You don't. So, make a salad at the house, and if you're by yourself, invite a friend, or do what could you do to break bread with someone this coming week and have it be, and it doesn't have to be heavy. Just, how are you? I haven't seen you in forever. What you up to? You look great. Or you look, God, what's going on with you? Whatever. Have an honest conversation with someone, because the other thing I think is people feel, what I'm hearing, they feel very alone and very disconnected, and we've all been locked in our cages and our caves and we haven't come out because we're afraid. Still that affects me. So how can you very deliberately now break bread with someone? Because now it's going to mean even more to you, I bet.
Well, not only that, there's so much going on. Literally in this last week, there are 8 men who I've worked with, talked to, who are going out of town alone. And actually about that equal number of women, but they're going out of town alone, a couple overseas by themselves, because they don't want to sit in their house alone on Christmas. And what you're talking about is, that piece of literally sitting down and having a simple meal with another person is how we're designed to be. And I also, this has been flashing through my thought process here is, since most of the people who are listening to this, I'm assuming are men or will be listening. It's like, how many men prepare meals for the women they're with or the children they're with? And I'm sitting here going, I probably on average only prepare maybe 2 meals a month, if that much. So I'm not sitting here going, okay, do what I do. But I am, and it's, what is it? Is it possible? What is the process of preparing a meal for somebody that you love and care about? And is that a way to provide nurturing?
The answer is 1,000% yes, because it is, I'm giving of in my case, I'm giving of my talent to create just something has been a consistent theme with us. I want to create a space. I'm going to open a space for us to have an experience together. Even that's just a bowl of soup. And just a bowl of soup in my world is cutting onions and the celery and the carrot and braising some beef and adding some beans and waiting, letting it cook and enjoying the smell and knowing that someone's going to come over and we're going to sit out on the porch with simple bowl of soup, right? The easiest thing in the world, make soup. Don't open soup. Make soup. Right? It's easy. It's super easy.
Are you saying even I can do that? Is that what you're telling
anybody can do that? A kid can do it. Soup is, I mean, literally throw a chicken in a pot, fill it with water, cover it, boil it for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, let it sit for an hour. Take it out, pull all the meat off the bone, just eat that. Now, if you want to get crazy, add some vegetables to it, I mean, it is the easiest thing to do, but it's the act of thinking about it. And something that I want to add to this, I want to make sure I don't forget, is cooking is typically a solo experience. My life is primarily, I'm the only one in the kitchen. And about 6-8 years ago, I started something called the Gentleman's Dining Club. And the idea was once a month, there were a dozen of us in it. And I've had versions of this running for the last 30 years. And one guy will be the host. So it's going to be at his house. And I go over sometime during the month and we sit down and what would you like to make? Like, what do you enjoy doing the most? You know, I don't care. I'm agnostic. Like, what do you want to do? Or what would you like to learn how to cook? And then we make a menu. And then he and I will go shop, because typically guys flounder in the grocery store or flounder at the farmer's market. One guy said to me after one of these trips, I didn't know there were so many kinds of lettuce. Simple, right? So then I will go over to their house on a Saturday, typically around noon, and we will spend the whole afternoon preparing everything. And then the guys will show up, and the wives or girlfriends will show up, and we'll have a feast. We'll have a festivity, right? That he and I would have created. There's the bonding through the day, but it's the cooking and relying and helping. For me, it's teaching, but it's also the shared experience of doing that thing together in service of a greater goal, which is this meal that we're all going to enjoy. Is one of my favorite things in the world, is doing that. And because I love people, I love talking about food, I love showing people. One of my guys, and I've done this where I've had all 8 guys in the kitchen, And so we plan a more elaborate meal, and I have things done for everyone to do over a 3-hour period. And then we all eat. We did an Indian meal, and there was the opportunity to make the spice that we were going to use, which is, 15 different spices in it. And so I gave that to one of the guys. I said, "Okay, that's going to be your job, is making the spice." He goes, "Okay, I got it, chef. I got it, chef." And I have my head has to be on a swivel because I have to watch what everybody's doing, right, to make sure, because it's a
Make sure no one's cutting their finger off and putting it in a salad.
Yeah. But I also make sure everybody's having fun, right? And I look at him, and he has 2 spoons up, and he's just looking at him. He's looking back and forth at him, and I go, "Nora," I said, "Hey, Bob, what's up?" He goes, "Which one of these is the teaspoon?" Had never had to measure anything in his life. Which one of these is the teaspoon? So just think about that for a second. How, and for me, it's really hard because I've been cooking since I was 8 years old. But then I remember which one of these is a teaspoon, and they haven't had that experience. And so I would just suggest to everybody, and guys typically don't do the cooking, and they can have that story, "Well, I'm the guy, I don't cook, oh, I grill, or I'm the," there's all that kind of bullshit. That's all bullshit. The great chefs are all men. Guess what?
Totally
right. All men. And this is not a sexist thing at all. So please, no cards and letters. I women chefs are my favorite. So, but I don't know why guys tell themselves that story. So the challenge I would put out there is pick a night, maybe over the holiday, and cook the meal. Don't go buy the meal, cook the meal. If it's just for you, cook the meal for yourself. If it's just for you, invite someone over. If you don't know anybody, invite your next door neighbor, use it as an opportunity to meet someone. But try this communal activity, and you'll find that it's, oh man, it's like the best thing in the world. Make a big pot of soup, invite 8 friends. People love soup. Go get some good bread at the bakery.
Yeah,
just have soup and bread. That's all you got to do. It's not hard. I think we've lost that. So that's what I want this to be about, is around creating opportunities for community. There you go. That's it. That's the name of our show. We can
either name it that, either that, or we can name it "Which One's a Teaspoon?" One of the two.
I still razz him about that. He's one of my become very good friend.
So part of what I think we're talking about, and part of what I think that a big part of what you're saying is, and I would be the 2 words: food and service.
Yeah.
Not food service, food and service. How do we provide service to another? And how do we provide food and nurturing to another? And I want to swing this back around. A week or so ago, I think it was a week ago, Thursday. Traver and I, on the Thursday evening chats, we were talking about the holidays, and us sometimes being alone on certain holidays can be a real struggle. Sometimes being anxious can be a real struggle, regardless of whether it's a holiday. Sometimes being depressed can be a real struggle, regardless, again, whether it's a holiday. One of the tried and true, and actually there's research on this if anyone really wants to jump into it. One of the tried and true ways of moving out of depression and or anxiety is providing service to another.
Yeah.
Whether it be a homeless shelter, whether it be mowing your neighbor's lawn, whether it be
Picking up a piece of trash.
picking up a piece of trash,
Seriously.
whether it be
Just something where it's not all about you, is what you're saying.
exactly. And you know, one of the things Kimberly and I are talking about is whether there are all kinds of windy mountain roads up here, and I don't know if any of you all have seen the signs on the side of the road. This road maintained or adopted by so and so.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know, to pick up trash, and we're it's interesting. You have to apply to do that. I didn't know you had to apply to do that, but we're in the middle of that, and on one of the roads up here. But in the same way, my gig with the fire department, it's all volunteer, and but providing service, providing nurturing / food is what creates community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that in part, it's a bit of a little bit of a reaction. A person that I know on Facebook yesterday said, I need community to take care of me. And it was like,
Hmm.
And I don't know if this particular person got any reactions. I didn't. I wasn't on Facebook this morning. But it's like, what I really wonder about is if I say generally, I need community to take care of me, what kind of a response am I going to get versus I would like community to provide service to.
I would like a community to provide service to.
Yeah, or how do I provide service to community? How do I provide service to another? Because if 2 or more people are providing service, that actually is what creates community. If 2 or more people are saying, what can you do for me? That's not going to create community
At all.
And what you're talking about is you're not talking about calling someone up and saying, hey, would you make food for 8 men? We'll show up next Thursday. What you're talking about is is you becoming involved in helping and providing service to create that.
Right.
And if we want nurturing, if we want food, if we want community, it's like, how can we provide service, whether it be to each other or whether it be to our partners or our family? Some just happen to say,
well, what I'm thinking is that if you want to be served, you need to serve.
Exactly.
We had a friend of ours. He said, if you want to take more interesting photographs, be more interesting.
Exactly.
And on that note, my dear friend, Mr. Dewey Freeman, I can't wait till we talk again.
I look forward to this every week. This again is my favorite part of the week. And not only do I get to share, I get to learn, which is both are fantastic. Thank you.
It's a bit of community right here.
You got it.